welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so now the two sides are made, I need to start focusing on the actual arch part. Now, these pipes here started off life as a trampoline, and I've just taken the old tunnel apart, and this is basically the two arches that went at each end of that. So what I need to do is basically make a third version of these, if you like. But what I've decided to do is to put two of these on each of the arches, and then I'll make up the middle part for each of the arches. So that's the easiest way for me to make it as identical as possible. The radius of these is 8 feet. So when all of these are together from edge to edge, if it was a whole circle, it would be 8 feet, to give you an idea. So for the new tunnel, basically, it's not going to be quite an arch shape. It's going to go up in an arch, and then there's going to be a flat piece along the top, and then it's going to go back down again, to meet the other side. So these parts, if you imagine, are basically, if this is the side piece here, these pieces are basically going to sit in there like that. So if I just come back now, you'll be able to see it's slightly on its side. But if I now rotate that up, you can see that that's going to form the start of the arch. So the first thing to do is to remove these pipes here. I'm just going to basically cut those off with the angle grinder. So I've got 6 pieces of clean pipe. Now obviously the way that these were originally designed is some of them go into others, so obviously that will fit inside this one, and so on. That's how they were originally fitted together. So what I'm going to do is basically cut them all back so they're all the same. So basically what I'm going to end up with is 6 sort of pieces, each is kind of a sixth of a circle, so they're all kind of worth 60 degrees of a circle, if you like. And then what I'll do is I shall make the top part to join 2 of these together. Then what I'm going to do is, rather than connect them together as they were originally, the problem that I found with the last one is because they were connected together, they could actually rotate slightly, and then in the wind it actually starts to bend and twist a little bit. So what I want to do is weld them together so it's an absolute solid structure. So I shall do that, and then I'll show you what they look like once I've finished. Okay, so that's basically the arch put together. So what I've done, as I explained in the previous clip, I've cut off all of the sort of little bits of pipe going out. Now I need to clean this up a little bit more, but I'm going to basically weld these 3 parts together. So I've got obviously the bottom bit, and then the top, and then obviously the other side. So I'm going to weld all of these together. Basically what I'm going to do is clear all the paint off and the bits of string and stuff, sand all of these joints down here so there's all nice and smooth. And then I'm going to weld round here, and obviously around there as well, so this becomes one straight bit of pipe, well, bent bit of pipe, and then that's going to form the sort of the roof sections. Now what I was going to do was use 2 of these for each of the arches, and then make up the middle bit. However, this pipe really doesn't want to bend. I've shown you clips in the past where I'm bending pipe up, but this pipe really doesn't want to bend. I attempted yesterday to bend this, and it just wants to collapse on itself. And the other pieces of pipe that I've got, which are the same size, are basically just the wall thickness is too large to enable it to bend. So basically you'd need a machine to do that. However, one of the panels was odd, and the pipe is a little bit smaller, and this pipe will actually bend quite easily. So the middle pole, if you like, the middle hoop, is going to be made out of this narrower pipe. I'm hoping that's going to be strong enough, and that sort of led me on to having a little bit of a stock check. So basically the back and the front of the basically of the tunnel will be made up of these. So these are actually 11 foot 6 inches wide. So the actual tunnel will be, they're the size, that'll be 22 foot long, and then it's going to be 11 and a half foot wide, and then the hoops obviously in the middle. What I need to do is widen these, because these at the moment are 8 foot. So what I need to do, as you can see, is this pipe is exactly the right size, this piece of length here. So what I'm going to do is weld all of this together and then cut that exactly in the middle, and then extend that out with that additional piece of pipe, which will then make the hoop sort of go up, if you like, and then it'll go straight, and then it'll go back down again, and that'll be from that bit there to that bit there will be exactly 11 foot 6 inches. So that'll obviously fit the front and the back. I'll do that again with the other 3 pieces here to make the other one, and then that's basically the front and back hoop. So as soon as I've made the front and back hoop, I will then create the middle hoop by bending these 2 pieces of pipe, and obviously I'll use this as a pattern to bend those together. And then along the top there's a straight piece of pipe which will basically join the 3 hoops together. Okay, and these 4 pipes here will go together to make the central bar. So basically what I'm going to do is join these 2 together and these 2 together, obviously cleaning up all the bits and bobs. And then basically what I'm going to do is make one long piece of pipe out of that, one long piece of pipe out of that, and that will join the hoops together, which are going to be within the roof. So what I actually end up with is this piece of pipe here, which is spare, and I've got another piece down the bottom end, which is also spare, a little bit shorter than this. So what I'm going to try and do is extend the sides to make the tunnel as large as possible. So basically what I'll do is I'll just calculate out how big I can actually make it, and I shall start to make the bars at the back and the bar at the front, and also the hoops of the roof. So that's basically the next section. So what I'm now going to do is finish cleaning up the hoops, and then weld them together, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. Okay, so I've sanded off all of the joints that were on here, and what I've done is just separated them out, and I've cleaned up all of the zinc off these joints. So now I can put all this together and weld it together. So basically I've cleaned up that joint, this joint here, obviously there's a bit of pipe there as well. I've taken all that off, finished it off, and cleaned both sides of this as well, so I'll be able to weld around there. So what I'll do now is weld all that together, and then give it a final sand off with a linishing wheel, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that's this one side welded together. So as you can see, I've done quite a hot weld. We've got quite good penetration on there. Obviously on here as well, because there's a reasonable amount of filling as well, because there's a bit of a gap obviously where the joint comes together. So what I'll do now is basically the next step is to cut this one in half and then put the extending part in the middle. But what I'll do is I'll make the other half up before I go any further, and then as soon as I've got the middle point in, I can then go back and just linish all of these off so it doesn't rub on the net when the net's fitted to the tunnel. So I'll do that next. Okay, so now we've got these 2 top pieces. What I'm going to do now is just put the frame together with the side pieces, just to check out how high it is and make sure all the geometry is right. And then what I'm going to do is potentially heighten these slightly, and then I'll cut these in half and basically make them wider. Basically cut and shut these so that they're the right size for what we need. So I'll put that together and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Okay, so I've just temporarily slotted that in, so you can pretty much see what the tunnel's going to look like. Obviously the middle hoop's not made yet, which will be fitting in here. But the important thing is, at this time, is basically looking at the height. Now, this is actually sitting, these sort of ends of pipes here, they'll be actually in the ground. So this pipe here will be sitting at ground level. So this is basically 6 inches higher than it should be. So basically the tunnel will only be about 6 foot high at the moment. So what I need to do is extend this bit here up by around 6 or 7 inches. Now I want reasonable amounts of head height, so what I'm going to do is add a piece of pipe in there, so that basically this whole hoop is about 6 or 7 inches higher than it currently is. So what I'm going to do is use these pieces of pipe here, because quite usefully these have got this sort of end piece in here, so that will fit inside the other pipe, and also we've got these little locking nuts here which are quite useful. So what I'm going to do is cut these down so that they're around 6 inches, 7 inches long, and that will extend the pipes. But what I'm going to do is, because I've got the tunnel absolutely straight at the moment, rather than welding them in and potentially getting the angle slightly wrong, I'm going to fit it all together actually in the frame and weld it whilst it's all in place. So what I'll do is I'll just cut these down so that they're 6 inches long, and then fit them in underneath the archway. And what I'm also going to do is drill a hole in the side here, so that little locking pin, which is this little locking pin here, so that little locking pin there will actually lock into the frame, so that it'll basically prevent the arch part coming out of the straight part there. So what I'll do is I'll cut it all down and get it into place, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so I've now cut these pieces down, so from there to there is basically 7 inches, and these are going to slot inside these pipes here. And obviously this is the locking mechanism here, so obviously there's no hole yet, but that's going to basically sit like that in the pipe. So what I need to do is drill a hole here, so as I push that in, that little locking tag there is going to go into the hole. So what I'm going to do is, obviously that will go down to pretty much there, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is measure down that much down to here. So obviously I need a hole roughly about there. So all I'm going to do is have these so that they all go inwards, so this doesn't catch onto the net. Obviously the net's going to be going on the outside. So I'm going to drill a hole in here, just a 6mm hole there, so I can put these in and they'll lock into place. So I'll do that now. Okay, so there we go. So there's basically the extension part that's gone in there. Obviously the hole at the bottom there, that's where the locking pin is. This hole that I've made here is literally the right size for the pin, but what I'll do is I'll get a 7 or possibly an 8mm drill and just stretch that hole out a little bit so it's a bit more robust, because what I'd be concerned about is that rusting and me not being able to separate it later. But basically that's sitting in place. Obviously what I've done is I've cut this down to size, and I've cleaned both sides of the joint here, and exactly the same on the other side. So we've got a hole there which is, I've wiggled the drill about just to make that a little bit easier to get in and out, and I've driven this one down the side there, obviously cleaned both sides. So all I need to do now, now it's all straight, is just weld round here whilst it's in place, obviously because I want that to be in the right orientation. Weld that round there, and obviously this side as well needs to be welded around there, so these two pieces are together. So I'll do that now and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so that's the piece joined together, as you can see, that's all nice and solid now. Same thing on the other side, that's all welded together, nice and solid. So now the height of the tunnel in the middle is, well, from arm's length now, that's probably 7.5 foot. So obviously I'm going to lose about 6 inches at the bottom there when that's pushed in the ground. So the middle part of the tunnel is going to be something like, at the top, is going to be something like 7 foot off the ground when it's all in place. So that's about right for me. So what I'm going to do now is basically swap these two ends over. I'm going to put this one far end, and then do exactly the same thing to that end as I've done to this end, so that both hoops are identical. Okay, so now we've got both ends extended up, so they're both at the same height. Quick tip, if you are going to weld when it's wet, always put your welder on top of a bench, and obviously your tools. What you don't want is to get them wet, particularly a welder. You don't want to get them wet for a whole number of reasons, not for only your safety but also to protect your welder as well. So they're all welded up in exactly the same way. So these are all ready. So what we can do now is start to put together the cross members which are going to go across there, and basically cut these in half here and here, and then we can start to bring the two sides apart, basically to make the size that it should be. So what I'm going to basically do is cut that and cut this, and then separate that side out, and obviously that side that way, and then I can start to put the extension pieces in at the top. So I'll show you me doing that in a moment. Okay, so now we're going to extend the arch, and basically what I've done is I've measured round from both sides to establish where the centre of the hoop is, and basically what I'm going to do is cut that and extend basically separate these two halves and extend it by a bar. So what I've done is I've measured round and got one measurement round from the other side, and basically I've taken the average of those two measurements, which is obviously that long line in the middle. So what I'm going to do now is cut through that, which will give me exactly half, and then clean those joints up, then I'll weld a pipe in. So it's important to note that the actual hoop needs to be extended to the same width as the bar which is going to go across the bottom. So this long piece here, that's the bar that's going to be from side to side, which is a little over 11 foot. So if I take a measurement from the inside, because obviously this pipe's going to be going on the inside of the frame, so from the edge of that, obviously I've not cut it yet, to here, so the measurement from the pipe that's going to go into the middle of here to extend the length is going to be from the inside edge of that all the way to the end of that. So obviously I've prepared this pipe already, I've had to join it there, so I've used all the little bits up. So basically that's the pipe which is going to end up being sort of welded into this middle bit from there, then obviously this part's going to be on the other end. So what will end up happening is this whole hoop will be extended by that much, and so that end will be there, and then the other end, which will be here, will end up being kind of there. So it'll be exactly the same width as this bar, so all of the tunnel has all the same, all the parts that are holding the two sides are all going to have the same width. So what I'll do is weld this piece in to here, and I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished. Okay, just a really quick note, I've just put a couple of tacks on there with a welder, and I've actually put 3 tacks on there as a welder, and with a welder. And what you need to do as soon as you've done that is just make sure it's absolutely square, so the ends are the same, the distance from there to the bar is the same at that end and at that end, just to make sure you've not got it on the slant, and make sure that it's all level so it all sits true before you actually weld. So now I've had a check round and made sure that all that is square. I can now go back and finish the weld off and make sure that's all nicely welded up, so I'll do that now. Okay, so there's the original size hoop, and basically what we've done is cut that in half, and I've welded here a straight piece into the middle, which will obviously then extend the tunnel out by basically that much, so it's made it around 1 metre wider, obviously the same length as this piece here. So now I've done that, basically what I need to do before I go any further is measure the exact middle of that, and that's where the pole's going to go to support the top part, which are the 2 pieces here. So they're going to join sort of coming out like that, if you like. And then this next hoop, basically what I need to do is in exactly the same way, find the middle of that, cut that in half, and then extend that by this much as well. So then I've got again 2 identical hoops, and what I can do then is put the tunnel back together with the extended hoops on, with a measurement in the middle of where the central supporting beam goes. So that's the first hoop done. What I'll do is basically just clean up this weld here and this weld here, just sort of linse that off so it's nice and smooth, along with the other welds there. Basically find the middle of this and then just make a mark on there so I know exactly where the middle is before it goes up, so I can join the top bar up, and then basically just extend out in exactly the same way the second hoop, and then I can put the tunnel back together. So I'll just do that and I'll show you what that looks like when I've got it done. so now we need to make the bit that's going to connect to the bar that goes across the top of the roof, and these are really useful, these little catches, because what you can do is the pipe will fit over the top of that, and obviously just by drilling a hole you can quickly click it in and you know that's going to hold it all in. So basically all I'm going to do is attach that to the middle of the arch piece. So all I'm going to do is use the trusty piece of cardboard as I've shown you in previous episodes, and I basically want that to be at the bottom, so that's going to be one of the peaks. So I basically just need to put that on like that, and sort of fasten that round as best I can. Now, because this pipe is shaped, it's not going to be a absolutely perfect cut, but because I'm going to be welding it anyway, I can take out any discrepancies with the welder in it. So I'm just going to, in exactly the same way, I'm just going to draw around that and then create two pieces, one from there and one from there, which is basically on a piece of bent pipe, so it's scrap anyway, I don't need these bent. So I'm just going to cut out the shape, and then this will be welded to the arch in the middle so that the pipe will come off that. All become more clear when I actually show you it welded on, and then you can see how it fits together. So I'll do that now and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, so there are the two pieces cut with the shaping. So basically, obviously this is a round pipe here, but that's going to fit on like that. So the little pips at the underneath, so it'll actually go onto the pipe like that, and I'll just weld that round there onto the straight piece of pipe. Obviously this is just a bent bit of pipe to show you, but that'll go on there. So I obviously need to make sure that that's all lined up when I do it, so I'll do that whilst it's on the floor, and I'll show you me welding that on in a few moments. Okay, so now that's welded up, I've got all the straight bit welded in there. Basically in the centre here, this is where the poles are going to go for the central part of the structure to hold it all in place. So basically what I'm going to do is weld some of these in that you saw me making in a previous clip. They're going to sit exactly in the middle there, so that the pipe can easily fit onto there. Now obviously the pipe which comes off there will then sort of go, obviously we're looking at it sideways a bit, that's going to go off on sort of up the middle at the top, just to hold all the parts together. So what I'll do now is just very quickly weld that in place, making sure that it's square. Obviously the pip goes at the bottom, so any water won't sit in the pipe, but so I'll put that on there, then I can start to put the tunnel back together. Okay, so that's the two end pieces all together now, with the extension bars in the middle. And obviously I've welded the first one of these, which is obviously where the pipe will go across like that. I obviously need to weld another one onto this one here, but effectively that's that one almost finished, but it's finished enough for me to get the things on. I need to just add the cable holders in here, which will become more apparent in the next episode, but apart from that, the two end pieces are now finished. Okay, so for the bit where it joins in the middle, this is a piece of really large conduit pipe, and basically the inside diameter of that is the same as the actual pipe that I'm using on the side. So what I'm going to do is cut out a length of this, and I'm going to have something like probably about 6 or 7 inches, so so it's reasonably strong. This is obviously going to add strength to the middle of it, but I don't want it to be too big, obviously, because of the weight of it, because this is quite thick steel. And basically what's going to happen is the other pipe, like the straight bit of pipe, if you like, is going to come down onto this and weld around this pipe, and then this I'm going to drill 2 holes through, so I'll be able to bolt through onto the pipe that's obviously going to be on the inside of this. So the first thing to do is I need to drill 2 holes through this to ensure that the lines are aligned with each other. what I'm going to do is first cut the length with the angle grinder, about 7 inches or so, and then I'm going to drill a hole all the way through, which will take an M6 bolt, so that'll go all the way through both sides, and then obviously I'll have a nut on the other side. Obviously this is going to be the outside, this will be like the top of the tunnel, this is obviously be inside the tunnel, and then all I need to do then is drill through and then slice this pipe in half, so I end up with 2 halves of the pipe like that. Each one will be on the 2 separate pieces, so this is where the 4 pieces of pipe are going to come together. So basically I'll have like 2 pieces of pipe like that, which are going to go along the top, and then this is going to be effectively the central, the middle archway. So what I need to do first is just cut this to length, and then what I'm going to do is drill through and then slice it in half. I'm obviously drilling it first to make sure that the holes are completely lined, and then I'll draw 2 lines along there, and with the angle grinder I'll just go up and cut them in half. So I'll show you me doing that now. Okay, so as you can see, there's the piece of pipe. The wall thickness of it is quite, I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite thick. The wall thickness of that's probably 1/4 of an inch, sort of 3 or 4 mil. So it's quite a heavy piece of pipe. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is 8 inches long. So all I'm going to do is just measure in from each side, probably about, I'd say probably about an inch and a 1/4 or 3 mil in from both sides. And now what I'm going to do is drill now all the way through that, through to the other side, so it goes straight the way through with a with an M8, an 8 mil drill. And what I'll do is I'll first go through with the smaller drill, then I'll go through it again with an 8 mil drill. So I'll show you me doing that now. Okay, so what I have done is I've already gone through with a 4 mil drill. And what I'm going to do now is go through that with a 6 mil drill. I've only gone through one side, I've not gone through all the way through. So what I'm going to do now is drill all the way through straight, keeping this as straight as I possibly can do, through both sides of the pipe. Okay, so as you can see, it's now gone all the way through. So what I want to do is most certainly keep this hole that I'm about to drill here aligned with that. So just a really quick trick, get a bar or a long drill and then place that through the hole. Obviously it needs to be just smaller than the hole you've drilled. Now if I now place that in there, I can tell from this one if it's straight or not compared to here. So keeping my eye on this, making sure that that's straight, what I can now do is drill the second hole, so I don't get, so the holes aren't sort of doing this, they're most certainly in alignment with each other. So I'll just do that now. So I hope this episode has been of some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions that you've got below. If there's anything that I've done that you're not quite sure about, I'm always happy to answer any questions. And I'll see you on the next episode to show you the next stages of making the tunnel, and that'll be coming up very soon. So I'll see you then. Bye bye now.